I want to live my life in such a way that people see freedom inside of themselves. And wherever that takes me, and I know it's a big game, I want to live my life in such a way that other people see me and experience freedom inside of themselves.
Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Relationships Podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe. And Adi just landed from New Mexico, actually just landed.
Literally like 30 minutes ago.
He was there with our oldest son, Kai, who just booked his first big TV show. So exciting. It's going to be on Amazon. We don't have any other information, but as soon as we do, we can do a big virtual family viewing party.
Yeah, we traded off. Sophie was there for the first almost 2 weeks, man. And then we just felt like it was too long for Sophie to be away. So we switched off. I came out there and she went back home. And, it's exactly times like that where we're hectic and sort of doing completely different things for almost a whole month that a lot of the tools we talk about in our relationship work really come into play.
Yeah. And since we have such busy, hectic schedules, it's so important for our relationship that we take these sometimes rare moments to truly connect. And even last night, we had a really sweet check-in, or was that the night before last? But yeah,
what is time right now? We
fit in a really great, thorough check-in, which we always suggest to you guys so you can really check in with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And our life is busy. We have the 3 kids. We've got our own jobs. We've got our own businesses. We got this podcast. And so I really miss you. It's been like a month since we really spent time together.
I miss you too. Wait, should we drum roll?
I think we should.
Okay, let me.
Where? Oh, I left them. I haven't been home in a while. Where are the drums?
Here they are.
All right. This one comes from Larissa. I am Goddess. I am so blown away by Sophie and Adi and all of their amazing guests. At first, I couldn't get through the episodes, but I think it was because I wasn't ready to do the hard work on myself, my relationships, my addictions, etc. I'm feeling a shift and know it is my time to be the goddess that I am for myself, my husband, my family, and my friends. Wow, that's awesome.
So
I thank
cool.
you guys for all your hard work and know that you're giving us so many resources to learn and grow. Thank you so much for that, Larissa.
That's so sweet. I love that. Yeah, and please contact us so you can get a special gift. The quote of today is, develop enough courage so that you can stand up for yourself and stand up for somebody else.
Gotta love Maya Angelou. And I think that speaks so much to the episode that we're doing today. We've got Garrain Jones on today.
Yes. And you actually, Adi, had to interview this without me. Thank you for holding it down. Yeah,
that's what sort of happens when we don't see each other for a month.
Yeah, I was away in New Mexico. We just couldn't coordinate in terms of recording this, episode, but he held it down. And for those of you who aren't already familiar, he's the author of Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life. And we've had him on the podcast before, so definitely go back and listen. And Adi, you did an Instagram live together.
From Tulum, yeah.
Yeah. How did you feel about this interview?
I felt really, really good about it. It was a completely different interview than the first time we talked to him on the podcast. This one really talks about race and racism in the country really deeply from his perspective as a Black man. And I talked a little bit about being an immigrant, which sort of gave me a little glimpse into it, but we do not hold back. And, that's what I appreciate about Garrain in general. The moment you talk to him, you just feel the life force coming out of him.
He's incredible.
And it is not different on this one. So, word to the wise as you're paying attention to this, maybe don't let the kids be in the car the first time you kind of listen to it. I swear he doesn't really swear all that much, but it's a really deep, intense topic, which is very relevant for what's going on in this world right now.
Well, we promised you that we wouldn't stop bringing you these difficult conversations around race. Just because the media got quieter doesn't mean that we have to.
Absolutely. And in this episode, we talk about our responsibility for me personally as a person who's white or passes for white to use our voices and our privilege and how to affect real lasting change, the reality of meeting success and opportunity in this country, and how that's different for people depending on the color of their skin. We talk about the Breonna Taylor case and how Garrain is staying positive, hopeful, and creative despite all these tragedies and the stressors that are really prevalent in our life right now.
We would love to hear from you. Let us know what you think about this episode. If you go back and listen to his other episode, we love to hear from you. And remember that if you go back and leave us a 5-star review and we read it on the air, although we do sometimes read lower reviews as well. So be honest.
Radical transparency.
Be honest. But we will definitely read it. And if we do, then you will get a special care package from us with some Ignited and Philosophy goodies. So make sure that you leave a review where you listen to podcasts. We mostly check in with Apple. And what else? That's it. We love you. Thank you. Share this. Tag him. Tag us. Give us some love. Let us know what your aha moments were. And
we'll see you on the other side.
Bye. This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fixes all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com.
So good to have you on, man. I'm kind of going to jump us right into this. We did that Instagram live and, we got really deep and so, we've done this conversation before, but like I always like doing with all of my friends, I always like going deeper, especially with people that have it and can bring it. So hopefully that's what today's conversation will be all about.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. Cool. So for a summary, I'll probably summarize this, or I probably have summarized this a little bit for people in the intro, but in some ways we have similar stories. You ended up in jail, you got out of jail, had to figure out kind of like what the next phase was going to be like for you. You did a lot of self-improvement, got yourself to this place, and have found a way to get prosperity. And I mean that in both the spiritual, psychological sense and in the wealth and sort of money in your bank account sense. And a lot of the people who come to me at Ignited, a lot of people who talk to us are people who are struggling. And there are a lot of different ways to struggle. There's the ones we just mentioned, like being in jail and things like that. But there are also a lot of ways to struggle just in your head, right?
Yeah.
Struggles that are not necessary in the sense that as the moment you shift your perspective, the moment you look at the world differently, they kind of just
I was just about to say that.
Off. Yeah. And so I want to dive in deeply into that with you, not to discount. We got into this in our live, so I want to mention it and go as deeply as we need into it. The fact that some of these things are systemic, right? Yep. Some of these hurdles and barriers, they're still greatly affected by the perspective and the way you look at them. You've got Muhammad Ali behind you. The racial...
And Albert
Einstein sticking his tongue out at us. The racial dilemma, the racial inequality was even greater and more powerful and more, or at least more visible, I'll say, when Ali was in his prime. And yet that motherfucker found a way to tell everybody to fuck off and found ways to just do things that were inconceivable at the time. So there are examples where the way you look at things and the perspective you have on the world can beat even the greatest odds. But I know that's a big part of your story. And I kind of wanted to jump us right into that place because now when you do your work or when you speak or within it's Herbalife, right? When you do this sort of inspiration for people to create their own businesses and you help people create wealth, etc. I see it as coming from that place of I am the master of my mind and my domain, and I will create my reality.
Yes.
So preach on it.
So I tell you, man, yeah, Muhammad Ali went and created it. And yeah, I went and created it. However, I know because I lived inside of my own body, I worked 10 times harder. And it's like clear as day, even to get on certain stages, even to get in Forbes, there's a lot of things where I'm just like, damn, you just had to do that. And you got that opportunity. I was like, I did that like 6 years ago. And I've been doing that. And it's like, it's so interesting that my success had to be this granular thing. And then it got noticed, but you can even take it back to music. It's, and it's one of those things that I don't give it a lot of energy. I just focus on mine. And then that's why I get it. But if you give it a lot of energy, it's going to take you out. But if you can look at artists like, like say for instance, somebody that sings soulful music, and it's somebody like India Ari, right? So you got India Ari, great writer, great performer, great live, all these different things. If you had a white girl that sounded just like India Ari, 100%, she would sell more records.
Yeah.
And me coming from the industry, I've literally heard with my own ears, she's not white enough. Or she's too black. Like I've heard these things. I'm like, yo, what freaking, this is like 2011. I've heard these things and I'm just like, man, you know what? Let me not give this energy. Let me work so freaking hard that it's so undeniable that you can't say shit. Like it's so undeniable. The thing about it is the fact that I even have to do that. Like I'm grateful for everything.
Yeah.
But I can see the difference, especially I've been in the industry for a long time, whether it's modeling, when in 2001, when it wasn't so diverse in Los Angeles, I went to 13 different agencies to try to get in. And in every single agency, they had one dark-skinned guy and one light-skinned guy. And when I went to the go see, they look at me for maybe 30 seconds. We already have somebody that looks like you. Next person. And I experienced that.
Yeah.
Now, here's what happened. I could have taken that and I could have said, oh, you did this, you did that. But I just kept going. That's my superhero power. I will get knocked down and I will just keep going when everybody who's being championed or cherished been broken down because they don't know how to be resilient through trying times. My superhero powers, I just keep bouncing back up. So I went to the next one, got rejected. Next one, we already have somebody that looks like you. Next one. There's Wilhelmina and Ford. This is over a 3-day time period. And my whole thing was, I'm too short. I have nappy hair. I have this. I don't have abs like anybody. I don't look like anybody. I don't have portfolio, Z card, nothing. I was like, what are they ever going to see in me? Because I didn't even see anything in me, right? Get to Ford. We already have somebody that looks like you. Then get to Wilhelmina. Now there's a room full of like 50 people. And they look like David Beckham and freaking Tyson Beckford in every nationality. But like Chinese, you got the white, you got the all these different, and I'm just like, yo, this is crazy. And they all got rejected. And then I was getting ready to leave. And then something said, you come this far, keep going. And I went up there, they looked at me, and I had already lasted longer than all the other people. And they took a Polaroid of my little bird chest at the time. And they came back, and this guy, he's like, we'd love to represent you. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, what?
Right.
Because in my head, I don't look like anybody. And he said, you don't look like anybody. We'd love to represent you.
The fact that you were different was the thing that got you through, even though initially you thought that was your weakness.
Absolutely. And what I came up with is you earn your powerful yes by growing through your no's and growing through your rejections. A lot of people don't have that bandwidth.
Sure. You know, a lot of people, you'll hear this phrase sometimes, like your strength can be a weakness because you stop paying attention to the areas that you're really good at, and then somebody gets better at you and eats you up. And I always say to my people, you know, your weakness can sometimes be your strength too. This thing that you've been trying to solve your whole life. I'm too sensitive. I get too anxious. I get uncomfortable in certain situations, or, you know, fill in the blank. When you look at that from a different perspective, sometimes you end up realizing, oh, damn, there are ways and there are places where that is a skill, right? Being hypersensitive to other people's emotions, right? So people who talk about themselves as being like super empaths and stuff like that. It can be really upsetting to you sometimes, because if you're in a room with somebody who's really sad and distraught, you feel their pain. But it's also pretty powerful to be able to look somebody in the eye and know how they feel. And if you can communicate to them, talk about the bond and the connection that you get to create. And so here's the magic though, right? You didn't leave even though you felt like you were nobody.
Yeah. Something just had me keep going.
Yeah. So that's a fact. And you brought it in. I want to bring it back to some of the racial conversations, some of these other things, because how do I say this? Yeah, it's like, look, I'll just be really frank and honest about it, and it goes where it goes.
Why would you not? Come on, this is what this conversation is for.
And it goes where it goes, right? I've said this before, but I'm actually a foreigner, right? I wasn't born in the U.S. I was born in another country, came to this country. For about 4 to 5 years, people could tell that I was a foreigner. Because the way you spoke. I had a little accent, then and I didn't know how to say very good. But I got over that. I learned how to speak very clearly. And even before, when I would shut up, nobody could really tell that I wasn't American. And so I had this sort of like leg up. And then once I learned the accent, nobody would know unless I tell them. And so I've been a little bit on both sides. And I have to say this, and I think this is why this question gets so hard to solve. I like being on this side much better, right? Like I like not having to prove myself to get back to zero. And I hear what you're saying is you and people who are in other ways looked down at or seen as marginalized, blah, 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 you know, fill in the blank of whatever you want to say about different groups. Your starting point is below ground. Like you have to climb a little bit just to get to the ground level where everybody else started. And now you're kind of tired. Like you're like, dude, I just have to climb for 3 extra months just to get to the place that you just get to start at. And if that's happening all the time, resentment, anger, pain.
Happening.
Yeah.
Well, listen, they did a study with two monkeys, and then they had a monkey, and then they were both giving them both peanuts, and then all of a sudden they took one of the peanuts away, and then they gave the monkey a grape, and then all of a sudden the other monkey is like,
"Give me the grape."
And then they gave him the peanut again, and he throws the peanut out. He was like, "No, I want that." Puppies can tell the difference. Monkeys can tell the difference when there's a difference of like treatment. Like that's not, it's not rocket science. The hardest thing is when people deny it. I'm like, oh my.
I think we had, you talked about this on the live. You had a friend who was like, no, I'm not racist.
No, and it wasn't even that. It was the fact that he was like, that it doesn't exist.
Mm.
He was like, I don't understand why people are so angry. And I'm like, you have 2 daughters, treat them with a certain way and don't treat the other one the certain way and allow them to see that and watch how your relationship is in 30 days. I bet you it'll be different. He was like, oh my God. It's energy. There's an energy exchange.
Oh, 100%. I talk in my TED Talk, I talk about this. The way you see other people literally will affect the way they behave.
Yeah.
And then it goes one level deeper. The way you see yourself affects the way other people see you, which then in turn affects the way you behave. And so we have a responsibility for other people and a responsibility for ourselves to shift any of these negative beliefs and these perspectives about ourselves that are holding us back and are holding other people back. If we start from the standpoint that we actually want equality, right? Like, I think we can argue that maybe some people don't want equality. I kind of mentioned, look, it's nice to have an advantage. It's just that I have to realize that by me and people who look like me and other people who can get by, getting that advantage by near definition, because it's not absolute, but by almost by definition, that means that other people are being disadvantaged in that balance. And we can talk about scarcity and abundance. We can talk about some of those concepts on a bigger scale, because there is, as you mentioned, there is a way to rise above that. But now I'm asking those people to put additional effort because it's possible, and I like to hold on to my privilege.
Right. But just for me, I have an advantage. I have a following. I've traveled around the world. I have white, black, gay, straight, trans followers. Like, I've got all kind of followers, all different Muslims, Protestants, Jews. You got the Christians. I have so many different kind of followers because I'm always leading from love. I have an advantage.
Right.
So I use my privilege to actually educate the people, to speak to the people. I would never not use the privilege that I've worked, that I have, but I actually worked for mine. It wasn't just given to me. Like, I actually had to earn it. However, I recognize that I have a privilege. So if I see a woman not being treated fairly because she's a woman, am I going to just be like, no, it's easier to be a man. I'm glad that I don't have to go with they. So when they're yelling out women's rights, I'm not like, all people's lives matter. I'm not going to say that. I'm like, hell yeah. Like, I want you to speak up. I want you to speak up, because it irks me. Like, no male should have the right to even make laws about women's body parts. That's a whole nother conversation, because no women make laws about men's body parts. It's so crazy.
We can get into so many.
In that sense, bizarre. I'm like, I want you to keep yelling women's rights, because I want some of these knuckleheads to hear. Maybe they're not going to hear it till they die off and their kids rise up. But it's like, but I support that. I support gay rights. I support LGBT when they're yelling and they're saying like, yo, don't treat me like this. So why all of a sudden, when these are globally welcomed and they're globally supported, when Black lives say that, now it's like a problem. What are these people yelling about? I'm like, yo.
I mean, you know why, and I'll just say it out loud, because some of the stereotypes around who Black people are, right?
Yeah.
The existing stereotypes are around strength and violence, and again, if we're just putting it all on the table, ignorance and stupidity, like, those are the stereotypes. So So when anger shows up, and I don't have to tell you this, but like, our president, like Barack Obama, said this multiple times, like, if he ever seemed angry, all the stereotypes of who Black men are would all of a sudden just flood people. So he had like this responsibility to never allow that into the equation, although guaranteed some of the shit that was going on made him incredibly upset. But that's what you're dealing with, right? Like, so if we go to some of these other groups, like, homosexuals are not known as being an especially violent, aggressive group. So when they rise up, it doesn't match the stereotypes, and people go, well, why are they doing that? That's weird. We don't expect, again, I'm being stereotypical here. I'm doing it on purpose, but like, we don't expect the gays to be violent. Why is this happening? And it makes people think.
Well, they run Hollywood. Hollywood would shut down.
Right.
So they would have a different way. They were like, yo, I own this studio. I run this. shut down.
But they marched their butts off, and they did all that stuff as well. And so I'm saying, like, there was this really easy excuse for white people to go, oh, there's those black people getting all aggressive and violent again. We knew it's in them. And so that's where, when I was saying before, it's our responsibility. I'm saying it's my responsibility. It's why we're having this conversation, as well as the responsibility on the other side to bridge the gap. Because the people, here's the thing that's so tough. I was just asking somebody the other day, we've never seen a system get rewritten, right? Get completely reconfigured without violence, if we're honest about it, in the history of humanity. Most of the time, at least the big ones, when people had to completely shift the way a government system or a group of people, a country operated, a lot of times it resulted in some serious violence. And I'm hoping that we've learned enough from the past to not make that mistake again. But that's going to take a bunch of people with privilege saying, you know what? We set this system up so it's biased against different people, and we have to change that. And that means, guess what? I'm going to lose my advantage. That's the only way that this gets written in a healthy way.
Yeah, and when do you see that happening?
I'm just saying that, like, if we don't figure out how to get this shit done ourselves in a way that is respectful, it's gonna get angry.
Yeah, and I even said to my friend that one time, this I was on a call, and this supported me so much because I was talking to my spiritual advisor, Monica, about this whole situation, and her mom. So she just her little daughter, it's like maybe 6 years old. She was like, mom, while we were in a session. And she's like, not now, honey, not now. And she was like shooing her like that. She's like, mom, not now, honey. I'm on a call. Can't you see? Mom. And it kept progressing. And then it started turning to tears. And then it started turning to passion. Then it started to turn to aggression from a little blonde hair, blue-eyed white girl that's 5 years old, simply trying to get her mom's attention for 5 minutes.
And that was 5 minutes. Yeah, not 5 generations.
So it's 5 minutes. And her mom then all of a sudden turns to her, met her at the point of pain. See, most people, they're afraid of confrontation. Yeah. So they try to safe their way around it for protection and safety. Her mom turned towards her, heart open. She said, Garrain, hold on 1 second. Yes, baby. She was like, and she said, and what else? And what else? And what else? And he did this, and what else? And what else? And what else? And she said, and how do you feel now? She's like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that's why there's so much aggression.
Oh, hell yeah.
People don't feel heard. The cries just get louder.
Well, they're not heard, right? I mean, it's not just that that little girl was not heard, and there have been people screaming for years. I said this. I only did one big rant when I got all mad when the riots were going on and all that stuff. But it's like, people are putting so much focus on why is there violence, and we can talk about Antifa and other groups. Like, you can talk about all that as well. But I said flat out, I said, look, I don't know about you. I wasn't there for it. I wasn't born in the 60s, but I watched a bunch of documentaries. And unless I'm fully mistaken and these things are all made up, like, they tried to walk. They tried to walk across some bridges they weren't allowed to walk across. They got beat. They got shot at. They got maced. They got stomped on with horses, right? Like, that was like 60, 70 years ago. You're talking about 5 minutes of a little girl not getting her way. When you see your parents getting beat and not getting what they deserve, when you try it yourself, when you see your kids do the same thing, the level of anger and frustration, like, I'm surprised there hasn't been, I mean, there was rioting here on Rodney King, there was rioting around, like, we've seen little flashes, but I'm surprised it hasn't gotten more.
Oh, well, that's because all these, like, say, for instance, the cops, and not every cop, but You know what I'm saying? If you're going to categorize black people a certain way, well, guess what? If something keeps showing up, now you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
Breonna Taylor, the thing happened today, and everybody got off.
Yeah. Yeah. One person indicted for shooting into the house. Nobody indicted for killing her.
So this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen anything because there hasn't been any jury updates until today.
Such a good point, because somebody was saying to me, even around the George Floyd thing, they were saying, well, they let the cop go, or they arrested the cops. And I go, hold up. Arresting him is one thing. I've still never seen a cop convicted for this shit. So right, you go through it, then you see your kids go through it, then the kids see their dad goes through it, see their own child. It's like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations deep. And this isn't frustration that's going to go away, just for anybody listening, right? Like, I've got kids now. You got a kid, right?
Yep. She's 18.
I care a lot about what happens to me, but I care a shit ton more what happens to my kids. I'll tell you that. So if I walk and I see that the system that I'm living under is going to end up causing my kids pain, potentially killing them because of unjust biases that exist. Like if they just go to the store to pick something up, or they're having a bad day,
I got to talk to them a certain way about things to do and not to do. That's not
including like, don't wear certain clothes in the street and keep your hands out of your pockets all the time, like crazy stuff, right?
Always carry your receipt. Like so many things that I've had to be prepared for when I was a little kid. And a lot of my friends were white friends. And so I literally got to see the growth. And I was like, yo, this is crazy.
Yeah. By the way, I used to steal shit from stores all the time, but nobody looked at me because I wasn't like expect. Anyway, there are a million stories in this way, but yeah, I will probably put up with a lot more pain for myself. But then if I start feeling like my kids' lives are threatened or my kids' happiness is threatened, I feel like that's where a lot of people show up on a whole different level, and they're just not willing to put up with it. And again, I think we're seeing that right now. Like some of these killings, murderers in the street that are being reported, like you're talking about 13-year-old kids. And by the way, because we're talking about racial aspects of it, that's there. But you mentioned the police, so I just want to talk about this. Now that this kind of police shooting thing is becoming more and more obvious, you're seeing how sometimes, because of training, because of whatever preparation, whatever you want to call it, cops handle a ton of different situations that should be de-escalated. Like that should be the point, with just the use of force, and primarily the use of force to kill somebody. So it's not even the use of force. It's like take the target out and then figure out what happened. Right? There was this Asperger/autistic kid that just got shot because his mom called. He was having behavioral problems. And his mom called the cops because he was threatening to hurt people, etc., thinking the cops are going to like subdue this kid and take him away. She told him she thinks he has a BB gun ahead of time. And they said, oh, but she's not. This was the thing. He has a BB gun. She doesn't think he has a real gun. And because she said that, they did the opposite of what she said, which was they assumed he had a real gun. So they came to a call from parents, and I've heard this from all races, but they came to a call where parents were asking for help with their kid, and they shot their kid in front of the parents for fear of their lives. No, he's actually, white kid. So maybe, I don't know if they shot him enough. I don't know. It's so, I've got 3 kids. So it's like, it's so scary to me that this crap can happen. And no, he's like in a coma in a hospital. And
got it.
And what I'm saying is, we see this system, we know that there are problems with it. And I think we've realized by now that the people who are marginalized are not going to be able to make this happen on their own, especially without extreme violence.
Right.
And so we have to figure out a way to come together on this shit.
The hardest part about this, so, we've both been in jail. I know when some shady shit's going down.
Yeah.
The harder part hardest part about this is every time something like this happens, there's always some kind of somebody in government that's in court or some kind of weird shit that's going on. And it's like whether it's the Epstein or Weinstein case or whatever, and it's like just gets blowed over, or Hillary in court during the same day where they had the blackout things on social media. But it's like night and day, knowing that some shady shit. I was like, does it pan all the way out? something. Somebody dies. I'm looking to who's getting away with getting away with what? Something happens in the streets. That's where all the energy is. I'm looking at somebody's getting away with something. That's the hardest part, because I've done some crazy stuff, and I know when something smells like some bullshit.
Yeah. It's sad. I've accepted to some extent. I've worked, in my line of work, I've worked with some people who are incredibly wealthy and powerful. And
you and me both.
And I've accepted that we actually live in completely different universes by completely different rules. I almost
like a giant Sims game.
Yeah, like I'll say this in a way that everybody listening right now can really very clearly understand. What you just described is like you go to a magic show, and every time that the guy's like doing this thing with his hand with the flowers, you're looking for the other hand and the feet to see what he's actually doing for the trick, right? That's what you just described.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is sad or good. I have no idea, but I got to the point now where I'm like, fuck it. I know he's fooling me. I'm going to look at where the hand is for the trick, and I'm going to go with it just because.
That's the hardest part. I'm like, so what can you even do? It's
well, I mean, look, we can, I don't know how deep, again, I said from the beginning, we're going to take this conversation pretty deep. Money may not be the root of all evil, but that whole idea of, absolute power corrupts absolutely kind of concept. When you have a ton of money, not like the kind of money that most people that I know even aspire to have, because it doesn't even play in the ballparks of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like
10 times that, 100 times that.
Yeah, I'm talking about, first of all, you got to start with B's. There's no M's in your numbers. It's all B's. And then like 1 is not even almost enough to be in this club now. You got to have like 5 to 10 of them. And for people, I consider myself a relatively normal human being. Just to think of like people wanted to be millionaires before. We're talking about thousands of millions and people that have multiples of those. So when you're in that club, literally the world is a little bit like a chess game on a global scale.
Yeah.
And so you're right. There's like diversions and media buys and all this stuff that happens under the surface. I don't know. It's sad to say. I almost don't want to look. It's like I don't want to know.
Yeah, because then you'd be down the rabbit hole, and you're like, and now you can't function. Now you can't do what you feel called to do because you know this thing. And it gets pretty crazy.
And also, the other thing that I know is, it's like I play chess, but it's like if I'm playing chess and they're playing Chinese checkers. We're playing by different rules.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, I think, again, it gets us back to this kind of Black Lives Matters conversation. What I hear from a lot of my friends who are in marginalized groups is they're like, just give me the same fucking rules. Just let me play by the same rules everybody else plays by. I'm not asking for privilege. I'm just asking that when I leave the house, I'm leaving the house and I'm leaving the house are playing the same game. Right.
Yeah. I don't want no handout. I do not want a handout, and I hear what you're saying. Yes, I want to play the same game.
Yeah, and I think especially having worked with some of these people at these really, really high levels, I think I just realized, first of all, and this is a belief thing, so maybe you can work me through this here in the last couple of minutes we got, but I don't see myself belonging in that game, number one. Now, those guys had to see themselves belonging in that game at some point to get in there. So that's a perspective and mindset thing. And that's something that can definitely be worked on. But the second piece, from what I've seen, and I only work with people, the people I work with struggle with mental health and addiction issues. So they're not incredibly happy playing that game.
Right.
And so what I realized is that I don't even know that I want that level of dominion and control, because then all of your life becomes chess. There is no decision. Like, there's no decision that goes along the lines of, you know what, I'm just going to hang out today and sit back, because all the pieces are moving constantly and you have to be playing. So that's a decision I feel like I made when I started working with people who are incredibly wealthy. It was like, when I saw that other side, I went, I don't know that I actually want that. But in the discussion that we're having right now, I really kind of see that as the next level of, now the game rules have changed again. But for the rest of us, the other 99%, I think we're just trying to equalize the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I want to live my life in such a way that people see freedom inside of themselves. And wherever that takes me, and I know it's a big game, I want to live my life in such a way that other people see me and experience freedom inside of themselves.
I love that. We call our addiction program the Ignited Hero Program. And part of the reason is that I tell everybody, look, you're coming to me thinking that you're damaged and you need help. But when I work with you and I help you change your perspective on what's going on, what you're going to see is you're actually incredibly powerful, and you have the ability to do what you're asking me to do for other people. And so I love the way you said that, is if just being around you, just experiencing the way you see the world, and maybe seeing a little bit of it through your eyes helps people, then they get to pay that forward for others. And we get to, I have this saying that I've been saying for years, that's, make the world a better place, you get to live in it. So we can all kind of have this cascading effect to make the world better.
Yeah, I agree. I love that.
I love it, man. So tell me, man, what's next for Garrain? Like, what's up in your world? Where are we going to see you go over this next year?
So right now, my number one priority is babies with my wife. So that's my number one.
Not a bad priority to have.
Yeah, I'm not taking on any project because I'm not a half or a kind of person. When I go, it's just like one lever. It's boom. So I'm putting that into, all my other business stuff is like sustainable, and because of the system and structures I've created. But I am putting a lot of energy, a lot of creative energy, a lot of mental energy, spiritual energy in the process of creating babies while, we're moving as well in the next month.
Love it, man. Love it. Okay. Well, I wish you well. I hope it all works out the way you want it to work out. We've got 5 questions. We asked you these last time, but I'm going to ask you these 5 questions again to see if anything changed. Okay. What's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice, you know what to do.
Love that. I love it. Do you remember who told you that?
It was a samurai. I was in a program called Samurai where they teach the way of the samurai. Wow. Everything was about learning samurai and exercising your intuition. You gotta look it up. It's crazy.
Amazing.
There's a thing where they would never answer the question. It's, you know what to do. And it's trusting your intuition.
I love it. Next question. What has been your proudest moment to date?
The birth of my daughter, the graduation, high school of my daughter, and my marriage.
I love it. On the flip side of that, what's been the hardest?
Forgiving the 2 men who murdered my father.
Oof.
And truly letting it go. Like really, 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 with nothing there.
Wow, man. That's a big one.
Took me 30 years.
Yeah, that's big. I know health and wellness is a big thing for you. What are your self-care rituals? How do you take care of yourself?
You ever heard of Robin Sharma?
Yeah, sure. The 5 a.m. club?
5 a.m. club. So the 20-20-20 formula, you wake up in the morning, 5 a.m., you do 20 minutes of intense exercise to lower your cortisol levels and boost your serotonin levels. And then 20 minutes of like affirmations or writing or some kind of reflection of the day before or what you're going to do today. and then 20 minutes of learning one thing new. So reading a book, working on a project, something that's one thing new. I keep it. I like to simplify and automize my life. And the more simple things that I have, the more I can just kick off those into habits.
Love it. And then last but not least, this is called Ignited. What ignites you?
Thinking about the future version of myself and where I will be, where I will go, like what my kids will look like every time I think about me from 5 years from now, I'm like, yo, it's so motivational because it's beyond anything I can picture. Oh,
I love it. That's beautiful. Yeah. That's beautiful. I can't wait to see where you'll be in 5 years. Thank you so much for joining us again and having this really deep, necessary conversation. We promised everybody when the George Floyd thing was going on that we wouldn't stop having this conversation when the big noise stopped, and then we'd keep this flame burning because we got to have it.
And I acknowledge you for having that, because when the big noise stop, everybody tends to stop. And one thing I want everybody to know is I'm a proponent for love. I don't support anything or any party or any person who tears another person down to make themselves look better. I don't.
Absolutely.
I'm all about just breaking it down to the essence of I love you, you love me. Let's freaking build together.
Amen. I love that so much, man. Thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to keep up seeing what's going on with you. And thanks for being here, man.
You're welcome. And see you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.